Now, the fun part, throwing. So my centering is different from most because I actually center the clay at center. Um, most people force the clay. I don't. I don't force the clay. And also too, if any of you doing pottery and then you do a long time, my setup at home is I have a 2x10 behind and a bolt to the wall. It will save your back, and it take a lot of your knee, the weight off your knee and your back. So at home I have a 2x10, and it have a parallel two hole parallel that go up to about that tall. And then I went and got, this is all changed by a Hungarian potter that I learned most of my technique from. So we used to have a 2x6 that bolt to two thing, but we or I went and got the headrest to the car, like an old car. It had that stainless steel, and then you bolt I have a Harley Davidson seat that I bolt to it, but anything that you can form. So what I do is I always throw top on top of the clay. I don't. Most of the time, people muscle. They sit way back here and they throw the clay. I always sit on top. So then, if I need to get out, I just pull my seat out of the hole and then I walk out. So most of the time, I sit at home. I sit like this. I raise my wheel and I always sit like this. And when you center the clay, if you push on it, then you transfer all of that into the wall. Yes, push against the wall. Yes, yes. Instead of trying to lock up your body and force the clay into it, you using the wall as your pivot point, and then you center. It's a lot easier, a lot better. Because as far as throwing, I can throw all day. That's my favorite thing, is throw all day. And so to center, I sit on top. I lock this for beginner. Okay, you lock your elbow into your body, and you're using your body as a pivot point. So that's where the clay gonna. If you have the clay off center slightly, it will help you to stop that. And then I collapse at center, and I collapse both of my hand into the center, rather than push the clay to the center or pivot the bats and all that stuff. So what I do is okay, now the thing is, people don't utilize the centrifugal force of the speed. When I center, I max out the speed because it will help a lot. I don't know much about the physics of it, but you lose a lot more, but what you gain is all the pain and suffering that you. So you see how I lock the thumb, okay, and then I collapse the clay together. No, that's where like this finger come in. This finger is the one that actually lift the clay up. Yes, and the cool part of, I will demonstrate that. When I work everything in one single motion. I don't usually stop. It's all work in one single motion. So and all that is one single motion. And the one technique that maybe you can watch a video and learn it and practice it, but it called the grip. I see some people have learned it and modifies it, but it basically the same. Is this collapse the clay, this control the thickness, this pack the top, and it all action at once, right? So it allows you to do, things like this. And let's say, all right, uh,
I'm gonna nobody over here. I'm going to even
yeah,
the screen. I'm gonna move this just a couple inches so people can see. I won't.
sure.
I won't unplug anything. I promise. I don't promise. Is it better? Just a little bit more. Can't move it too much. Is that okay? Oh, oh no! I did it.
And I talked to one of the young potter, Elijah, on the back there, and he been working on that. And as far as the way I do it, a lot of time I don't have time to trying to figure out. But I had the advantage that he is learning the technique, so he tell me why a certain thing do a certain way, and it's realized that when I use that technique to open and throw the first pole, it aligns all of the clay particle in the same direction. And that allowed me to throw really thin thing, and structurally it's still stable. But if you have your clay all over the place, then it will start twisting on you. And it doesn't. And one of my methods also is I raise. So when I throw, I pour the clay, and this is really thing that if you have time, I talk way too much more for my real time. But when I open it out, I have a feel for the clay resistant to when I come to the bat, so I know exactly where the thickness is all the time, so I don't have to measure. I don't feel like I need, and I never feel that I need to, so I don't. But and what I do is I raise the bottom up because I already know the thickness. So then when I raise the bottom and then throw from that, then it will, when I finish the base and the wall is the same thickness. Because one thing that I don't like very much is trimming. Trimming is, I always tell people that trimming is like walking and clicking your mouth at the same time. One doesn't relate to the other, or one don't help the other. So I don't feel that it need to be. And here's another, the another thing that I discovered that is kind of unique trick. When you throw, trying to stick your pinky out. And even though most of the time I throw, it doesn't touch the wall, but it make my hand go straight rather than pull. Most of people throw, if you are an audience, you can see that they pull the column to them. But if your pinky come out, the column straight. It helps. So that is the second one. The first one to raise the bottom up. And the second one is pinky out. Yes. It takes a lot more. It can tolerate. Usually, most of my work I throw and pull maybe twice or three times. After that, it's not. And also too is, right now if I throw this high, my seat would be here. Then I would throw that way. But so. And these are the things that I've been playing with that I really like. These are my texture tool. It's a caster, and I just go at it my grinder and gear. Like then I and another useful tool. This is, I think, a carpenter shaver tool. You can go to Home Depot, buy 3 of them for $8. And I use them to expand the wall. So the tool go up and down. I found that if the tool go down, I lose a little bit of height, but I have more control. If I go up, I lose a little bit of the control, but the height is the same. So basically that, right? For my studio, I use a B-Mix. The whole idea of it is try not to be hindered in the thing that is not, different kind of clay or bats or wheels have nothing to do with moving clay. Woo. This is James DeRosa clay, the monster guy clay. He left it, so I figure. Oh. Oh, yes. I this.
I'm adjusting your mic.
I push. Oh, that's another thing. Um, it looked like I pushed the clay from the outside, but it actually I pushed the clay from the inside. I pushed it on top of my knuckle, and then my knuckle just raised the clay up, and then I lean inward a little bit so that it compensates for the centrifugal force that pushing the clay out. A friend just told me that so most of the time I don't remember what I say to people I met. My best friend called me up and we talked for a while, and he said, you know, when I first met you, you say, are you a potter? And he say, yeah. And I say, huh. That's what he remember. And then Laura just tell me that the first time she met me, I pick up one of her rib and I cut the end off. And I say it would be more useful. And she mad at me at first to know, but recently she discovered why I cut that end up. So it used to be both ends like this, okay? So the tool was designing for beginning people who throw with a flare on the bottom, so that the tool can compensate with that flare. But as you throw longer and longer, if you work that flare out, this will come to the wheel head. So it's a good thing. I like it. And the third thing is take a deep breath and breathe out. Slowly breathe out as you make your pull. It recenter your thought. I don't know why that is. Then something about it's. The only thing that relate to that is when people lift weight, they blow air out, and somehow they became stronger. I'm not sure, but it's the same thing. So that is the third thing that the third trick that be helpful. Yes, I'm a water thrower. I try to slip, but I think the water, the clean edge, is allow me to feel. I throw everything with feel and reaction, so I can feel the clay much better than the slip. But I actually learned with the slip, but it doesn't work for me. So I nope, I do exactly the same. But trying to remember these four things, and if you venture enough to try all the four things, what I trying to give you is a shortcut. You still get the same way. I found that most people, they found a certain comfort with what they already know, and they tendency to veer back to their comfort. It kind of like as a elder trying to tell a young person, someday you're gonna run into a rock, you fall down, right? And you just stand up and curse the rock, and you're done with. And then the kids say, "Why should I run into a rock?" And the same thing. These steps will help you in the long run. And okay. So this is the last pole. So the last pole, I discovered that. So when especially the last raise up, I take my finger and I run along the bat, the wheel head, and then I push with my thumb up, so it don't allow my thumb to slip and gouge the bottom. So and it somehow strengthened my thumb. So I raise the bottom up, and this is where you lose or you gain. So I have a wood fire kiln, and most of the people, I told them to participate, you have to have two things, one to lose and one to gain. And this is where you lose and you gain, okay? Because the last push, I raise the thing up, and then I push the clay out on top of my thumb. I haven't pushed it out on top of my thumb yet, but it tears the clay to be thinner than the base. And then from that point, I take only half of this that I raise up. If you're trying to be, and this is where that line is, if you go too far, you tear the whole column off of the base. And if you're not enough, then, you're not enough. So, and this is where you will lose or you gain. And then when I make the pole, I just take half of that up. Okay. And therefore, so not quite, but but so that is what it looked like when you take the half up. Okay. And another thing that the habit that I learn and I try to practice is usually when I sit down and throw, especially bowl or cups or something that is being used. I have a habit of I take about 4 or 5 ounces of clay, and I would make a bowl and stretch that clay until it collapses. And so most of the time, the clay is thinner than the glaze. and sometimes it tolerate it, and sometimes it not. And then at show, I put a free tag on it, and I put in people basket. And because I can't guarantee them, so if a person has something, I just put it in there, or they buy something, I just give 2 or 3 of them away. And so, and it kind of set my mind into a certain place that I can pour the clay much further. And in the beginning, when I teach in classes, I make the beginner center of 5 or 6 pounds of clay, and then once they struggle with that, and then I take away that, and I give them 1 pound of clay, and it changed their throwing differently. And I'm not sure what it is that in a person. And then another thing too that I do that most people think is terrible thing, but in the class, a person would make something, and then after class, I threw that out and make one exactly like that, except it's much thinner. And then they come in, and somehow it set their system to be my most of my students. Oh, I don't know. A couple of my students recently returned to Eugene and ran into me and say, "You one of the meanest teacher. I don't. You never give compliment, and you don't let me keep anything." And most of the time, I say, if you want to keep something, you just pay me. You come back after the class, I will throw a whole bunch. I even sign your name to it. Because if you're not learning, then I'm not in use. And if you learn, then all these things you keep doesn't teach you anything. It became this precious thing. And if you want a bowl, go find a potter. Pay them the bowl. They make better bowl than you will ever. And some of the potter, if you give them a black pen, they sign your name to the bottom. And it's not useful to. And if you in doubt of what I tell you, ask my wife. But if he posts and you see the picture on the top, learns it. It's a wonderful. This. Okay, let me. And the cool trick is when you make a teapot spout. So this allows you to do a teapot spout. And the cool part is it does not spin. It doesn't continue to spin. It's really odd, but most of you, when you make teapot spout, you had to cut it to compensate, because when it come out of the kiln, it will keep on spinning the same direction. This technique does not. The clay does not spin for some. But anyway, so and another really cool trick for teapot. If you ever want to make a teapot, this is not the best of the spout, but so let's say this the opening. So this is the top of your teapot. A little bit small. And if you take your teapot spout and you put it in so it the spout touch on the other side, right? This is wet, so it's terrible to show you this. But so it sits like that, and you take the commercial when you buy a wire is too thick, so I take a couple of them and I spin them out. Doing this, you hold the thing, you spin it out, and it unwound. So there are 3 strands in my wire because I hate it when you make platters or something like that, and you pull across and the wire always arch. So if you have only 3 strands, it will cut straight across. And then on my mugs, it leaves marking of the wire, and I like that. But this is where the teapot come in handy. So then you come down and you cut, right? And then when you take it out, it takes the shape of this. Isn't that cool? Yeah, it's really a cool thing. And another thing that I learned, and this is, then it will take whatever this form is, right? Isn't that cool? It's yeah. Okay, so, and another thing that is really cool that I learned from the Hungarian is that I'm not sure if they exist anymore, but as we go, I think all these information somehow pass away. But he take a little bit of clay and he put it in here and he mash it into it. So when you pour water, the inside edge cut the water and it won't drip. Yeah, yes, and it structurally it's helped this edge also, and that is how it's great.
There's a little bit of a.
Yeah, I don't do as much as I used to, but I used to have I threw a cup like a upside down bowl almost, and then I have a leather Velcro strap. Actually, I Velcro on my knee, so when I made let's say bowl or mugs, when I picked it up, I tapped on it and I set it onto the wheel head, and it concaves the thing slightly, and when I flip it over to dry, it compensate that, and then when you trim, it's straight across rather than bow up a little. And that's another thing that we do. And I'm full of crap like that. No, and if you ever run into my dad somewhere, you should thank him. Uh, I came to this point because I was anti-dad. When I was a young kid, math was my strong suit, and my whole family doing comic book when we were little, and so drawing and math is really good. And he wanted me to be an engineer or architect, and whatever Dad want, I'm going reverse as far as I can go. And I apologize for that, but. And then when I became dad, well, That's a different story, right? I don't call them. I don't call them. I'm dadding. I'm nudging. They don't call it nudging. I think one of them somewhere. And another thing that I say is that my wife feel that I don't say correctly or proper. That I feel that woman is better potter if they let go, because throwing is about grace. It's not strength. If you throw strength, then your pot, the thing that you made will always be the same, because you ram press the clay, you force clay into, and clay and momentum only allow you to go so far. But if you're graceful, you can move the clay a little bit better, and the form will come to it if the clay is graceful. I have student that is 60, 70 pound and can throw 10 pound because you don't push clay. And then I have friend that is 300 pound, and I used to climb onto his back, and I sit on top of his back and grab the side and force him to throw like this, because he throw like this, and he would use his fist to move clay. But a couple of years now that he started to realize it, and he can throw much thinner, much more efficient, and not he the form is much nicer. But that's my opinion. It's not. Oh, I have a. So when I do that to the clay, it does this, and you can never repeat the texture on it. So at home, I would scrape it against the edge of the wall to clean my tool, rather than doing this. I just scrape it, and then when it little hard is far down, then I would have a whole bucket full of this, and I stare at it for a while. Then I add together, or I carve into it, and years ago, I sent it to the Orange Cone box. They have that shows, and well, I fires it in different kiln, and then I enter that as a contest thing, and I win twice. So I think it might be the beside here when Larry hand me the check. I think that was the most satisfying money that I ever made. Ooh, thank you. I'm not sure why I'm crying. Such a good audience. And on the bowl, I do the same thing, except when I open out, I arch it up slightly. And when I make the pole, I pull. Ooh, actually, I did that. Wasn't pay attention. I will show you correct my way of doing it after. And another thing that interesting too is that when you make bowl, trying to not pull. I always bend this lip slightly. So if you pull, even though you make the bowl without the flare on the top, uh, I do it because I put a black rim. It's just something that I like is a mixing glaze and all that stuff. But when you flare the top, it's changing the dynamic of the lips. So when you make your pole, it doesn't oval because you apply pressure. So it will start to oval the top. And if you make any mistake, it whip around and it will just go crazy. But if you bend this slightly, and then your last pole, if you just make a straight up, then you make your pole and then meet the outside edge. It will help a lot. So I was uh, trained in college as an educator. I got a master's degree in teaching, and then but I have a romantic idea, so I went to Palm Beach and trying to make a living as painting. Because when I get my degree, to get your master, all school don't give a bachelor degree. You go 6 years and they give you a master, but it requires you take 15 credit hours of everything, math, everything. And the only thing that I have is sculpting, which is, I think I have like 80 credit hour in sculpting. I think it's independent 20 or something like that. But so I went down to Florida trying to make a living as doing painting, make painting, and my roommate would sell some. And we didn't do so good. We couldn't pay rent or nothing. So one day I say, I'm going to go for a day, one of those day jobs. You stand in the corner, somebody come in the van, they pick you up, you go. And yes. And in the middle of the day, I realized that I got a master's degree, and I do this for, they say $21 an hour. You know, you're just shoving concrete into the back of the truck. And I start crying. I say, I can't believe I'm doing this. So I put the shovel down. I walk like 12 miles back to where the corner where they pick you up. And on the way back, I was hot. This is in Florida. It's hot. And there's a library, and they have air conditioning. So I went in there, and I just browsing through all the art book. And in Ceramic Monthly, a guy in Texas looking for a potter. And it started out that I can throw a moving form with muscle, and then I join them together to make sculptural thing. So I know I can move clay, but I don't know anything about it. So I took my motorcycle, drove all the way to Texas, outside San Antonio. And the guy, sure, you know, I pay you minimum wage, and this is what you do. And then so me and another college, the one that I met, and he say, huh. And so we started this place. He's have lots of money. He loved pottery, and he wanted to start a pottery. And so he got a family that would build all these equipment, and we start throwing. And then I think into one and a half year, there's a skinny man stand at the gate looking into the pottery, and he have one of those cuts that all even around. And he say, I hear that you have a pottery, and I want to check it out. And that is the Hungarian that he married to a scientist, and she come to White Sand to study molecular. Well, she studied lightning hit and all the particle changes and they have one of those facilities there. And he's an ex-military in Hungary, so he can't enter the base. So he run around New Mexico, Texas, Arizona, and he just happened to be running into us. And he's the one who changed everything. And so most of my throwing is I have to return the credit to him. And when four of us started here, our boss built a building, and he came and he cut these holes, and we put window behind us. So we throw basically the same. We have 4x4 block that cut into 4x4x4, and we have thousands of them. And the square bat that most of you see, if you return back to the source, he's the first one who did that. He cut all bat into square, and he cut one of the bat whole. So on the morning when we showed up, the order is already on the post. Let's say if I throw a couple hundred vase, the order is there. The clay came out of the pug mill, and it's in a 55-gallon drum. And then the square bat is lining up. And that's what we throw. And then you put 4x4 block down, put a board, you throw and you fill, you put 4x4 block, you stack as many as the height you require, you put another board. And then when you filled here, and then you fill the front, and that's where you go out. You open the window, and you cross through the window, and you get out. And that's how we work. It was great. And the boss he lived in San Antonio. He come out on the weekend with a water cache, and he would say, T, how many hours you worked last week? And we just made it up. I don't know. How many hours did you think we worked? And one guy would say, 60. And we say, oh, it sounds sexy, sound good. And then he just give us an envelope of cash, and that's how I worked there for about 7 years. And so there's four, 5 people now that know my actual birthday. I don't like it. People thinking that they kept telling me that I have house in Venus and a castle in Centaura, something like that. I don't believe. I never seen it, so I don't believe it. And I went out with a girl who really into that, and I say, if you can guess my birthday, and I believe you. She never did. So during in the Texas time, on my birthday to celebrate it, I would write on the bottom of like a vase or a goblet, a bowl, and I threw into the lake. And one day, the kid that I say her to, he's like my best friend, and he jumped in and retrieved the goblet, and on the goblet say "Happy birthday, you bum" or something like that. And so every year now he call me up on my birthday and sing "Happy birthday" to me. And one day he called and Nina picked up the phone and he sing "Happy birthday," and Nina find out my birthday. And last week, because of the COVID thing, we get to know a elderly couple, and they say we need to celebrate something. When the mask mandate stop, and they say we need to celebrate something. And so Nina say, you got to tell them. You got to tell them. Then we can celebrate your birthday. And so we celebrate my birthday on my birthday. Oh, shit. It's on YouTube. He tricked me. Dang. Such a good audience you all turn out to be. Man, now I got to go over and tell Nina, prepare. See, now I'm all distracted and and so on my birthday, I call my mom. Nina dial my mom and hand me the phone. She say, you have to thank your mom for your birthday. And so I say, Mom, thank you for my birthday. And she say, it's your birthday? Because traditionally the third, I'm not sure, the famous one is the third offense, the New Year, the Lunar New Year. That's when everybody celebrate birthday. That's what third is, pretty much. I think he control my mic. He say I'm talking. Yeah, I talk too much, and oh, sure. Okay, I trying to get some of my students to do this, and I think they can make good money, especially plays like this. Oh, back to my boss. So the way he run his business, he would go to a show like this, and he buy things that he think that aesthetically pleasant, and he can sell, and he buys it, and he come back to the studio, and he say, make this. And that's how we develop our pottery. So he brought back not Saltner. What is a potter from Canada that really famous? Yes, he brought back a platter, the edge. So this is awesome. This is one of the awesome techniques. So you take this point here, and you put it your center of the center thing, and then you just lean on it, right? Oh, point it out as far as you can get. Okay, and then you push it down to where you can stop and measure the distance, but you don't have to. Now pull your elbow back in. Isn't that cool? You will never have S crack. Never. Only S crack if they stuck to your bat or stuck to the kiln shell, because you never tear the clay in any way. You actually throw this flat, right? But as you go out, the centrifugal force would cause your hand to go down. So just compensate. Yes. So it came out like, yes. And no matter, like, if I throw, let's say, 50-pound platter, I just put my whole body on top and I lean down, and then you do. So in reality, you only move this much of clay on it. Sometimes when I make big platter, I don't even center the clay. I just push down and then I collapse. And as the clay come out to the edge, it re-center itself. So, and once you got the flat, I can go only far as a bat, but then you raise this edge up the same, and then you throw this wall up. And I met, I think some of you might seen him on the show. He came out of Seattle, and this is all he does. He have milk crate, and in the milk crate, there would be 50 of these plates, and he don't sell anything but this plate, and like 50 or 40 something a pop. And people would go through his tray and look, and they pull out and take whatever. So I have one mixing paint mixing. It works better than this, but I don't have it. So you take the stick and you put your finger at the bottom of your stick like this, so it don't gouge your edge, and you hold like this, and you lay it across the bottom here, and then you just lay it out. All right, and you can lay it out pretty good. It will slightly come back up, but you can almost lay it flat. And so he bought one of Hopper plate that in this one, but it much more vertical. Because personally, I think on that form, he's kind of not that exciting. Yes. And the funny part is, was it in Sika here or in Seattle that he was in his booth selling wheels and something? And so I say, we have improved on your technique. So I did this, and he came over and slapped me in the back of my head, say, show off. But anyway. So that is basically the technique of plate or platters or thing like that. And so the deal most of the time, I know you saw my plate and thing like that at the end of the booth, but I don't usually make them. Hey, wow! Can you put one right here? You know, aesthetically, this is not pleasing. It it need. Oh, of course, you deserve it. So with this wire, when you cut, see that it it's much better. And also too is when you cut platter, if you have wire, a lot of time you're trying to pull, that is bad. So you take and you pivot one point and hold it down, and then you just hold this and then just spin your wheel slightly and it will cut. It's a lot better than trying to pull your wire across. Yeah, it's about 3 strands. I take one end, you know, they have the like a ball bearing, or and then I knock that out, and then I take the handle off, and then I split it. I pull it apart, and then I take a somewhat of a firm clay, and I pinch it at the end, and then I grab both ends and I spin, and it unwound, and then I cut that off, and then I take the next 3. I think there's 7 or 8 strands in here, and I take the next one, and then so I have a bunch of these. Even with platter, I do that. Yeah, 3. Yes. Yeah, and when you pull, it don't resist as much. I leave it twist the original, because if you take 3 strands and you put a chunk of clay or you tie like a washer to it, and then you spun it out, the 3 strand will stay 3 strand, and then you have 3 wire. It will break much quicker, but you know, at the rate that you need, it don't. And then I tie it to whatever. I actually at home I have a washer, big rust washer, and I have a magnet, a bar that right in front of me, and so all these tools, when I use them, I just throw it onto the magnet and they stick. And so the washer is the same. I just stick it here, and you know, this is a rubber tire. I round the top off a pot with, instead of chamois, and then I just take one of those twist tie on the thing, and then I punch a hole and put the twist tie here, and it will stick. So then I rarely, whenever I need something, I just pull it off of the magnet rather than, you know, this. Okay. When I came up here, they gave me 1 bag of clay, and I almost burst out laughing. Oh, I will show you a polling spout. This is another kind of interesting, cool trick too. So when I planning to throw a spout, so if I leave like a round thing, most of the time people bend and then shape. The best for me, the most aesthetically pleasing spout is when you pull the spout. So you pick a spot and you pour all the clay to it. And so then when the spout, then it start adding clay, and it will raise up. See, to me, this is much more pleasing than just have the spout. And then you can, kind of thing. Yeah. Yes, I learned it from him throwing like that. He's uh, a mold maker for the Hungarian, I think, museum art. The what? Nope. Mm-mm. Yeah. Yeah. When it firmed up a lot, you can stretch it much further. So if you feel my spout, it's really thin, and it because this is, it's not planted to, but because of this and the wall is thin, I can pull a lot of the clay, much more than that. But on like a mixing bowl or something like that, that's the way I do. Okay. 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 So anything else you want to learn while I'm here? A what? Oh, yes. Okay, let me see. So that is what this technique is about, because it's a pretty much. And the cool thing about another thing that is kind of cool thing too is so if you going to close the top up, right? Most of the potter I know that they just collapse this into a thing and then they close it off. The problem is sometimes, especially in reduction firing, you will have an S crack on the top because the clay come together, but it's not compressed together. So to solve that, what we do is we split this wall in two, and then you collapse it together, and then the inside go downward and the outside close up, and then they counter spin each other, and then when you fire them, you won't have that little, and that is how we solve. We used to make a lot of those things that put a groove here, and then when you cut this line, then the top drop in and it became a jar with lid. But we always have the S crack up here and have this, and then sometimes we put it on top of the dome and tap our chop on the top, and that stopped all of the cracking. I would sell this as a art piece later. We at another clay show in Medford, they call Clay Folks. It's actually the original clay thing. When I demo, because I waste so much, I just make a blob. And so everybody bring a little bit of themselves into, and they add to the sculpture. So I took them home. I still have the thing. I'm going to put into the wood kiln and then take it back to the shows and then sells it for clay ed. Yeah. I think that might be anything else that... What is it? Pole handle is it's much more of a practice than... And I had to tell you about there's I think it's still happening in Texas. It's called Clay Olympic. Yeah. And then it used to be that the winner of that Clay Olympic, they send them to Italy, to the Italy Clay Olympic. And that was fun too. Okay, so I think the bath is saturated with water. So, what is it? Handle. Am I okay? So when I make handle, I would have a big wad of handle. You roll on the wheel to make somewhat. And then for me, when I pull handle, I pull, and I like everything thin. I hate thickling. And then I pinch what I need, and I laid it into the table. And when I like to pull it off of my pot, because when I flipped it over, whatever curve that it creates, that is the curve that I keep. Because it seemed like much more relaxed. If you alters it, then it seemed awkward to me. It like, so I flip really quick. So this is another thing about people squirting and put slip. I don't. I spit. Yes, your saliva is much better than any water. And then, I mush it in. And that's another Hungarian thing that he's just spit. And so I just spit. Then I pull off of the pot. I just hold my mugs or a pitcher or whatever. And on my form, I like the glaze to cut. So then I pull the back of my handle with my thumb. So it curves the handle. It takes some of the weight off. So I have that curve, and that curve create a groove in the front, like that, right? And then I flip the thing over, and wherever it catch is where I pinch it. But then you have, and structurally, it's much stronger as far as pick it up rather than have a solid handle, like this. And if you create a groove in the center of it. You take quite a bit of that weight off of the handle, but structurally you curve the clay, and also when people pick up, their finger lies in it. Okay. Oh, you're welcome.